it on YouTube, so those who can't come now will be able to see it. Okay, so thank you for being all here. And so today will be, this first session will be the grammar class. And I will take a different approach for grammar. So you might be expecting something very yeah, just like grammar classes, basically boring. But what we'll be doing is looking at a video. And that is anything but boring. Maybe you have seen it. You know, this Avik Ritarumoche. He makes these videos. And I took the one that is about Lothar 2021. So what I propose is that first we look at it. And the nice thing about it is that there's already all the translation into English, so you'll be able to follow. Even though it might be Tibetan a little higher than your level. And so the first time it's 6 minutes, right? 7 minutes. So the first time we'll just look at it in just like that. And after that, we'll go through it with some subtitles, the subtitles in Tibetan. So the English will still be on the video. And we'll stop and then that will be actually the only part that will be meant for those who are already in B1 or more, because then they will be able to read together what the Rinpoches and what these people are saying, the people in the video, and then together with the translation, and try to see how the meaning gets through. And so for those of you who are now in A1, don't expect to understand everything that you're going to be seeing there, but just try to catch here and there a word or two, and then to reading the English translation, try to find back what is being said. And then after, once we have done that, then all the rest of the session will be meant for you. We're going to take parts of it, sentences from it, and analyze them in depth. Okay, so let's look at the video.
Come on.
아이요 르보치 2020 딘딘 엽시야 강반랑 주주대로 념바로 차도시스야 미드즈.
Just to make sure, is the sound loud enough? Is everyone hearing well?
A little bit louder would be fine. Thank you. Just a little bit.
Okay.
딘딜로 메라.
Is it better?
조보소냠도 대두이 가래 고인도 나자 고기리.
Was it better like that?
Yeah. Much better. Thank you.
Okay.
지고리 니고리 깨갱냥 잡되는 주바셔서. 최미경 나랑 나자 고미고 나랑 라레그라.
그것도 쩐지요 살다는 거지. 갓도 옛날에다 깨ጫ짜지 되기도. 갓자니 니아로 그러지기도.
르부체 디산주는 두주 살다. 나 그뒤 산주날 도에니 게시나 서우드니 거이무도 뭐지 마페니 나게니 푸게니 찍나올치다
상주나가 푸지로시.
야세데 이제 자원이 제에서 말다 가상 야가기 사가나리야 투바징아비인다 드네 야가와니 야가와 라하리 tuju takta le masong chulia de daljikiles nge kola nge dedanga meda labayin ke keyo mare teang peshibuyor에 lap송 ngani chorash nane tukbashosong
ngala nima takpa de chinangda
제 로만 이직이 되봐도 되나? 엄제 좀마 아마 좀
아마디도 여ring보여라야
rinpoche lendu party takto churuna kuche rinpoche
ni jes ya tene brother da jamani sato sare moistar chido
질로 바다다 몰라니 도주민도 풋볼에 지주민도 픽처 헐레 도주민도 마신이 라지 픽처 망세 슈퍼 플롭 조스야.
뭐제 파티 때만 잡으러 주로나다 믹도 좀 샤대.
드네 드네 또 바슈로가 찍이되나 배나 하상하면 주변기 10집 몰라도 돼
아마 디안데 링부다야.
합다직지로 보디 프로 스트레스 샷이야.
제시도 개념에도 서로 영향 말해서 지진이 효행도 얘네요 테스트에서 여기는 최전이 말이야
미밀 시엔데 상 나고는 통금는데.
나훈나네 통면도
그러면서 맨날 내려.
말아 맨날 부담 내려와요
티닝이 파르파 독터람나 드바이직 랭가 트윈러 독터 데다 useless 까짜르도 슈샤.
라면이건 네 못한다 디사레 말에 뭐 스타르지다.
임보제 가상에 둘러 참아 꾸며셔서
그 세리 밀로 해버린 대로.
따따따따. 딘더린데. 따다데.
먼저 싸게 배든데 부겨르다 먼저 가게 배든데 부겨르다
하나 해버린 대로.
드네 드메 응아도 되나 엄다레 두다레 두레소
옴다레. 아마 디데 각보다야.
하나 푸는 대로.
도금만 손에 개치 한 번씩요.
총도 야보레세레 말에 뭐지 따로 제라겨로
말해. 도금 손에 가서 도금 은대잖아 야사를 뭐 스타르지다.
딱 가르치오리야.
다 가르치오래.
다 가르치고래.
딱 가르치고래.
다 가르치고래.
딱 가르치고래.
다 가르치고다.
따디 기랑 뇌바다도 펜토에기 렌즈 째거나 뜻에서 말 이니양 이 남주 신 참말라 지용나 펜토사레 섬사라지 강슈바디 켈라 슈샤바이나 지당 니 드리케제
Okay. So I'll just stop here. It's half of the video, but then after it becomes more complex because he goes on to give advice and then becomes lot more complex than the thing that we saw until now. So this is much more things that we would like to be able to say and the kind of interaction that looks nice to be able to have. And so I think that we're going to go through some of the sentences that go until here. Of course, you will have the link if you want to look it afterwards, so you can read until the end. Yes, and so basically, just to give you a spoiler, at the end he gives advice and everyone is very happy, and then he gives good wishes for the new year 2021. So that's what happens at the end of this video. Okay, so now I propose that we go through the same video, but we go with subtitles, with Tibetan subtitles, so that we can pause and then listen to what they said and then read it also a little bit. So what I can do is to, maybe I'll do that. I will pause after each time someone says something and then repeat it slowly so we can follow better. So let me share again my screen. So I will try to. Okay. So this time, since it is not a video that is mine, I cannot publish the subtitles on it, so I have to do it through another website. So the video will be slightly smaller, but I will try to zoom in so that we can see. It. Just 1 minute. Okay. That should make it okay. Just missed the first sentence. Start again. Rinpoche la, jalka shungen ji do la. Ya dangsho.
고만
Go mare, go mare.
차상만
Cha tsago mare, cha tsago mare.
최소
Chisum,
사륜사
cha lutsar.
아이요 르부치 2020 딘딘 엽스야
Ayo Rinpoche, 2020, so it's in English here. And he speaks like modern Tibetan people in India and abroad, mixed with English and Hindi and whatever language of the country they're in. So this is also nice to, because he still keeps using Tibetan language as the structure, but he uses words of other languages. So it kind of brings out, shows the structure of the grammar of Tibetan. Dendre myopson ya
강반랑 주주대로
강반망 주주바 대로아
연바로 차로 치세요
뇽바드로 차로 제송야
미드스 딘딜로 메라
미든서 덴데 로코 메로아
가상 조보소 냠도 대뒤
가상 조보소 냠도 대두
가래 고인도
가제 고용기도
나자 고기래 지고래 니고래 깨게
나차 고용기제 지고제 니고제
냥 잡는 주바셔서
게 짱짱 잡되네 추바 쇼르소
최미경 알아
최미교
나자 고미고 나라라 레그라
나람 나차 고미고 나람 랄레기로아
부고티 쩐지요 살다는 거지
부고티 견지 여서르다 르부치
갓도 이날에다
가두 이나르다
깨ጫ짜지 되기도
게짱짱게 되기도
갓자니 냐로 그러지김도 그렇지 갓도 이날에다 깨ጫ짜지 되기도
카 짜네 년로 코랑 제기면도
갓자니 냐로 그러지김도
르부체 디산주는 두주 살다
디 상주낭라 두직 여서르다
나 카드 산주는 저웨니 게시나 서우드네 거이무도
나 가두 상주낭라 조와이네 게 신한 사보 된제 고 용기도
르부체 마페니 나게네 푸게네 직나올 쳤다
rinpoche ma pedne na gyaba yine pu gyaba yine chik nangro jeta
상준나가 푸지로시
that was slow enough
갸세데 이제 자원이 제에서 말다
gyakar seriati iche zane jeya yusa marida
가상 갸가기 사가나리아 툭바징아비인다
kasam sagang jik nanglaya tukba jik ngaba yinta
드네 갸가와니 갸가와 라하리
tene gyagarwa ni gyagarwa rang re
두주 딱딱 레마송 줄이야 데달지킬레스
dutsu takta leb masung tsulaya dredal jik ker lebsung
니 코다 니 데달나 메다 라바인
nge kola nge dredal nga meda labayin
그 개요 말에 태양 빼신 부여의 랍송.
그 let's try to get back that.
마송 줄이야 제 달지킬레스. 니 콜라. 니 제당아 메다 라바인
그 개요마레 대양 배신보 요레 랍송
개요 말에 태양 빼신 부여의 랍송. 아니 쪼라시 나네 죽바쇼송.
나니 초라지 랑네 초바 쇼송
Ngala ni matakpa duen chinangda.
나라 니마 딱par 되야 직 낭다
제 로만 이직이 되봐도 되나?
케 드라마 니르직 기 또바 디 되나
엄제 좀마 아빠마 좀
Ama dita yoyo ringbo yoraya.
아마 디다 예요 림보 여레야
rinpoche lendu party takto churuna ku je rinpoche na
올 림보체 렌두 파르치 캡투 쭉 로낭 쿠케 림보체
니 제스 야가야.
네 게스 샤이야
근데 브라질다 자문이 서도사래 멋있다르지도.
테네 브라질 당 저머니 니수 탑사레 모직 따브로 제다
chilo bazada molani dojumindo
칠로 바자르 테네 몰라니 드로초기 멘도아
football yeti jumindo
풋볼 양제 조기 멘도
picture hole dojum
픽처 홀 라에 드로 조기 멘도
machine laji picture mangse super flop dosya
마시네 last year 키 픽처 망체와 슈퍼플롭 드로송 야
rinpoche party chama takto churuna da mik de tum shade
rinpoche pardi kyartu tabtu chuk ronang mik te cho zum shade
되네 좀에 또 바쇼로 같이 되나?
rinpoche party chama takto churuna da mik de tum shade
되네
테네 드메 또바 셜로카 칙 되나
좀에 또 바쇼로 같이 되나? 배나 하다가 주변기 예시비집에 몰라도 돼.
Ama diyan dende ringbo daya.
아마 디 텐제 싱보 두아야
hafta jigjilu body pura stress chasya
합다직 제도 뭐지 부라 스트레스 차송야
제시도 개념에서 서로 영향 말해서 지진이 효행도 얘네요. 데스 여기는 제전지 말이야.
기쇼 당 개니 덴소 칠로라 유 닝기 마제 스 찍찍 니니 셰보 셰기 두아 이나양 데츠 유게 조나 치 경기 마제야
에밀 셴데 상 나그는 통금는
니 미글라 쩐데 요사제 나콩 나라 통기 면도
나홍나네 통면도
나콩 나네 통기 면도
rinpoche menapudang de nera
rinpoche mandal 풀당 텐제 저와
마레 맨데 프로 되네 저
마제 만들 풀당 텐제 저와야
Tining for doctor amna dawai jik lenga trainer.
드링 네 파다파 doctor damla 대화직 랭가 조이 저와
Doctor did the useless.
doctor dita useless 제도
까짜로 주셔.
까짜 제도 조샤
라모니컨네 모타나 디사레 마레 모스타르지다.
라마 데이 군드네 모직 답나 직사 제 마제 모식 답로 제다
림보제 가상에 둘러 참아 꿈을 쉬어서.
rinpoche khasam ne doglo changma kuma shorsung
Kuseri milo shibin zero.
ku tsering ne migla shepu zero tebro
따다 딘저리네 따다
tata tenre tata di
먼저 싸게 되는데 부결하다.
nanso sakyape tenre phugireda
맞아 가지고 되네 부르다
nanso kagyupe tenre phugi yoreda
Hena shibin zero.
ena shepu zero
드네 드메 응아도 되나?
tene trame nga di tena
옴다레 두다레 두레소
옴다리 아 마디다 딘데 각보다
ama dita tenre khabo du daya
Hena pudin zero.
ena fuji zero
도금만 손에 개치 한번 쉬요. 도금만 손에
도공 나 총두 개 첨부지 여
개치 한번 쉬요.
송도 야보레세레 말에 뭐지 따로 실라기로
총두 야보 레사 레 마제 모지 답로체 라기 요르와
말해.
오 마제
도금 손에 가서 도금 은대잖아 야사를 모스타르지다.
도공 총두 값수 뜨게 디 거나 야사제 디 거나 야사제 모식 답로체다
딱 같이 오리야.
다 가제 제거제야
나 가르치오래
다 가르치고래. 딱 가르치고래.
다 가르치고래.
다 가르치고래. 다 가르치고다.
다디
다디
키랑 뇌바달도 펜토에기 렌즈 째거나
kerangi doba dartu pen toye lenchik tekona
대신사 말
te shensa mare
이니양 이 남주 신 참말라 지용나 펜토사레 섬사라지 강슈거디
nge namgyu shen changma la jiyong la 펜 토사제 짬짬 자식 강 슈바티
켈라 슈샤바이나
켈라 슈 샤바 이나
지당 니 딘데
okay. So could you follow a little bit more or less? Could you recognize some words that you have seen until now at least? Yeah, please open your microphone. It's better that we can exchange, not that I'm the only one talking. That's somehow boring.
Yes.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
So you see that if you look a little bit, then you see that a lot of those words, even though when you first look at that video, most probably you were thinking, wow, how are they going to say all this in Tibetan? How is it going to be turned into sentences? And then when you look at the words in Tibetan, then there's a lot of it that you already know, that you have already seen. And you see that finally it's not that complicated anymore. It's not sentences that are so complicated. Then there's, after the lessons that you have taken until now, I think that you can see that, oh, this is something that I can actually reach. It's just that I didn't see it enough, but it's something that I can understand with a little bit of effort.
There is a structure that repeats quite a lot when they talk.
Yeah.
That it always ends with ta. Reta or something ta, but always ta at the end of the sentence. What is that?
Ta is actually the short form of tanda now.
Yeah,
but at the end of sentences, it's meant to be, oh, what I'm saying is right now. So I'm emphasizing what I'm saying.
Oh, it's just like, emphasis.
Like if I say "na druchen reda," you have to know that I am Druchen, not someone else. So
it doesn't matter the ending of the syllable or the letter, it's always ta. I mean,
it's always ta, yes, because it comes from the word tanda, which does not kind of agree or change, does not have inflection.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like in English, what would you say? Something like that.
Right.
Do, like do, when you use the auxiliary do to emphasize.
Do. The auxiliary do, well, that's too much inside the sentence. The ta is like a kind of something you add to the sentence, which is complete on its own. It's like, you know.
Indeed.
Yeah, or indeed, something like that, yeah. That is ta. So if you want to say, oh, this you need to pay attention to what I'm saying now, then you can put a ta at the end. Okay.
Druchen.
Yes.
Sorry.
Please.
There are two moments that they use like two jejuks that are not jejuks, the tsa and ka.
Yes, so actually this is just like in any language. You have the official way of writing things, in which you are told the rules of how to write correctly words, the right spelling. And then you have how people speak on the street. And then, of course, when people speak on the street, they don't care so much about being righteous and being exactly saying how it should be, etc. They're just completely at ease, expressing what they want to express. And so the problem comes in when you have things like those sentences which are obviously completely spoken, and when you try to put them into writing, then you're forced to twist the rules of how to write. And for example, it's like in English, if you say, come on, you can't write exactly the way you hear it. So you're forced to put C, and then a slash, and then MON. And so this kind of things, so that's what I try to do with this also, knowing that it's not the right way to write. But if I want to be faithful to what I hear, I must do something that goes together with the sound, not the spelling.
And there is another question. Sometimes they add like an S at the end.
Yeah.
Just, but this is like a strict thing, but sometimes Rinpoche is teaching, they do this, yeah?
Yeah. So this is a very good question. Actually, stand for, it's kind of, it used to be, it's an eroded version of Ser. It used to be Ser. But then if you say something and then you have to say a full syllable, Ser, Ser, Ser all the time, then it kind of, you make it shorter every time. And then what is left after the erosion is just the initial consonant. And then what happens is actually people are lazy when they talk. And this is a rule that goes for all languages. What this means is that if what they want to say is understood, they will say as little as possible. They will contract things, remove things. As long as they can be understood, they're going to be happy. And so whether you say alone or ser, like it should be said, people still understand the same thing. And so that's why it becomes this alone. And now about what it means, ser means said. So someone said something. The something is what you're going to say before this. So let's say, someone, which is implied, said, and this someone can change according to context. If in the context when I'm talking, it's obvious that the one who is speaking is you, then will mean you said.
A Tibetan teacher once told me that the use of this sound is to make the speaking like nicer, like more,
lively. I'm not really sure. I think it really has the meaning of quoting something that someone else said.
Like more polite, or when you want to be polite and nice, that you add that.
Yes, so it might be used as a strategy. So saying someone said this can be a strategy to withdraw yourself from the responsibility of having said that. And thus becoming more polite or less kind of straightforward or something like that. That may be why he said that to you. But actually the only thing that it means is someone said what I just said. Yeah, so it's only that. It just means someone said.
So maybe I think I've seen this in the context of someone giving teachings and quoting scriptures.
Yeah,
that's probably what it means. It's in the scripture that what I've just said.
Yes, and then usually if you pay attention, you will see that you will say Kasan. Let's say I make this sentence Kasan. Res Lavson. So if you see Kasan, my intonation is kind of flat. And then when I'm quoting Re Lavson, and then I come back to the baseline intonation. So I'm not using kind of brackets, or I always forget the name for this quoting thing, punctuation that you use. But in the intonation will give you the hint of where it starts and where it ends. Usually that's something that you can check for. And then, of course, when you're in teachings and then the teacher quotes another book or another work, then he's going to use ser or she, which is the literary version of that, etc. But yeah, most of the time when it's oral teachings, then you have this coming after. And then translators who are translating questions from the public are also going to say at the end, because they don't want the teacher to think that they are saying it. So yeah. So it is good to know whenever you want to say that someone said it, what happens usually in our language, our Latin language, is that you're going to say, oh, someone said, colon, this and that. And so in Tibetan, you don't have to think that way. In Tibetan, you straight away, you just say what the person said or what you want to quote. And then after you say, and that's enough, or zer, and that's enough. So you have to twist the way that you think about how to make quotes. And that actually brings us to what I wanted to share next. So I'm going to share my screen again. And yeah, so what I wanted to show you is that the order in which we are usually reading things is just as strange, objectively speaking, from the order of finding things in Tibetan. Because let's look at this sentence. It's written by Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy. So it's just it's coming from an article that talks about novels. And so if you just look at the first word, written by, what this implies is that there is someone who wrote something. And when you just reach the point of when in your ear or when you on the page you read written by, you don't know who wrote what. You have none of that information. You just know that someone wrote something. And yet it doesn't make you strange. You still can, okay, so there's someone who wrote something. And then you continue reading Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy. Okay, so that's the person who actually wrote. That's something which I still don't know what it is. Then you comma, the 8-part towering work of fiction. Ah, okay, so actually Tolstoy wrote the 8-part towering work of fiction. And actually, if you look at just that part, the 8-part towering work of fiction, when you start reading the 8 part, you have no idea of what we're talking about. You only know that something has 8 parts. And 8-part towering, okay, something is towering and has 8 parts, but what that is, I still have no idea. And then when I reach work of fiction, then I can put pieces together and say, okay, so it was actually a work of fiction that had 8 parts and that was towering. And then I have to know that all of this, actually, I have to put it together. So actually, the work of fiction is what was written by Tolstoy. And actually, all of this, what I've written until here, so, okay. So from here until here, this is to be read like if it was the subject of the word to tell. And when I read that, and then I feel like, okay, so something is going to tell something else. This something is the work of fiction. So until here, I have the subject of the action, but I don't know who wrote, what action is there, and then what will be the object of this this sentence, or on what the object and the action will happen, etc. I have nothing, but still I have only a partial information. I only know what the subject is. And it's fine for me. I don't feel it strange. I still keep it in my mind and then keep reading. Okay, so I know that the work of fiction tells. Okay, so that is the subject, that is the action that the subject is doing. It's telling something. And at that point, I still don't have the information of what it is telling. But it's still fine. I just keep it in my mind and wait for the rest as I'm going to read down the line. And then going again, the story of 2 major characters, a tragic, disenchanted housewife, the titular Anna, and then again, here, then I know that we are talking about the story of Anna, and going down there, the other blue words, Konstantin. Then I know that the story is about these 2 things. And then when there is an Anna who runs off with her young lover, then this part of information actually comes after the fact of having said Anna. But if you were reading in Tibetan, then this part, who runs off with her young lover, could never be after the noun. It would always be before Anna. So a Tibetan who reaches here and reads Anna, who runs off with her young lover, he will feel like, but who are we talking about? There's someone who is running with her lover, okay, but who is that? And the Tibetan would be completely confused because he doesn't know that this actually has to be linked with Anna. And then the same goes with, love-struck landowner named Konstantin Levin, who struggled with faith and philosophy. So again, here, for a Tibetan, reading that who struggled in faith and philosophy after reading Konstantin, is very strange and very awkward because you get some information, you don't know what to do with it, and you have to, well, do something with it. So here, what I'm trying to show is that just in the same way that in our languages, either English or Portuguese or Spanish or any Latin languages or any other language in the world, it's normal to have part of the information at the beginning and then keep going reading without having the whole picture, and then have a second chunk of information, and then put it together on the side yet not knowing what will actually happen, then go on with the next chunk of information, and at the end to be able to put it all together. So that is what happens, like we saw just now in English. And this is also exactly what happens in Tibetan. So Tibetan, the only thing is that Tibetan works the other way around. So someone is writing here on the screen. It's fine. Okay. So here, if you see, it's one of the sentences that we have seen in the video. And so the order in which information is presented to the reader is exactly the opposite. What comes at the very end in Tibetan comes at the very beginning in English. What comes at the very beginning in Tibetan comes at the very end in English. So actually, what I want you to know is that, generally speaking here, the action is please do a divination about something, right? And so the way that we do it in English is first we're going to bring in the information about what the person in front of us needs to do. So please do something. And please means I am requesting you, please do something. So in English, when the way you think about such a thing is, okay, first the request is going at the beginning of the sentence, please. And then you have what I want you to do. And then do that on, do what? A divination. So first you bring, in English, first you bring what you want your, the interlocutor to do. And then you bring information about that. In Tibetan, it's exactly the opposite. First, you're going to give the context, the general context of what is happening. So it's like if we're talking about a film, I would say that it would be just like if English or Latin languages first zoom on just the very focus of the action, of something very small. And then they zoom out to get the big picture. First, I want the person I'm talking to know what I want him to do, why I'm talking to him, what is the purpose of me talking to him. So that is, please do something. And then I will give more context about what I want him or her to do. So then I will grow this information, and then whether this shoot or that shoot fits better for the meeting tonight. So all that information is just contextual information that explains the person to whom I'm talking, what I want him or her to do. And so that comes after, at the end in Latin languages. But in Tibetan, it's the opposite. So this is something that you have to keep in mind when you construct sentences. First, always give the general information, plant the context, or I don't know how to say it in English, but yeah, set forth the whole context, where things are going to happen, what is happening there in this place, etc. And then you can come to what you want that person to do. And then as we see here, so all of this is the context. And then here we have Moshi. So if a Tibetan reader or someone who listens to this sentence comes until here, he'll say, okay, so until here, I know that there is this context that is there, and something will happen about it. I don't know what yet, but it's fine. I'm going to keep that information on the side and listen to next what is going to be told to me. And then there's Moshi, a divination. So, okay, so in this context, I know there will be a divination that will do something, or I will be requested, or I will learn that something did a divination or something. I don't know what's going to happen with that divination, but I know that it exists. It's part of the message that I'm receiving. And then the Tibetan will keep that and feel completely okay. I know I don't have the whole information, it doesn't matter. This is something I can keep on the side. And then once you have the information of moshik, so the object of the action, then you have the verb. Tabroche. Tabroche. Okay, so now I understand. I had before all the contexts. I know what should be done. And now I hear that, okay, please do that. Please do a divination. Okay, so only at that point, a Tibetan will understand what is requested of him. And then the tongue, which is the please, comes at the very end. And then I say, okay, well, it's a request that is given to me, not just please do something, but it is formulated as a request. Please do a divination. And so keeping this general structure of how to construct sentences is very important, because you must remember that whenever you're going to hear something from a Tibetan, you will know that first you're going to be given the context, then the object of the action. Yes, in here it is the object because the subject is not there. The subject is not given there because it's obvious. It is here. It was this guy who came and insisted on having divinations done by Rinpoche. And so the subject of doing the divination is obviously Rinpoche, because he is just in front of him asking something. So there's no need of, please, you do a divination. So the subject is implied. So first you have the context, then you would have the subject, then the object, and then only after that you have the verb. You have only the action that comes. And then after, some modifier or something to explain how we want that action to be done. Please here. And so to keep that general structure in your mind about how to construct sentences and how to understand sentences is very important. It is something that you must always keep in your mind. So, and that's.
Can I ask you something, Rupchen?
Sure. Sorry, I'll have to stop sharing because I don't see you. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no interruption in a conversation, right? Because of that in Tibetan, so you have to wait until the end.
Yes. Yeah.
In order to know.
Yes. No. You're not. It's true that for Latin languages, you're expected actually to stop the person in the middle of a sentence and start saying something. That's what is expected. And if you don't do that, I remember when I came back from Nepal to France and I was at the university and I was talking to my teacher. And then it was obvious that for him, and actually he brought that in one lesson, I remember, in linguistics, he was telling me in France, you're expected to interrupt your interlocutor. If you don't do it, it means that you're not interested. It shows a lack of interest in what the person is saying. So it is actually a social convention that you must interrupt the person talking. But then still in Europe, when you go to Germany and Germanic languages, you see that all of them very quietly and disciplinedly wait until the end of the sentence before they start saying something. Why? Because the verb comes at the end. So you cannot know what will happen, what is asked, what is happening until the end of the sentence. And as we know, it's exactly what happens in Tibetan as well. So that's why I was waiting until the end of what my teacher said, until I could say something, because that's what I had learned. That was the convention that I had learned. But then I came off of someone who is not interested. Yeah, so that's also good to know. So when you speak to Tibetans and you see that they're not cutting you in the middle of your sentences, just know that it's normal, it's expected. Yeah, because it's like this Rinpoche was listening to the sentence, and if he didn't wait until the end, Motabroche, then he would not know what the person is talking about. He would just know, okay, there's a lot of things happening. Okay, so this and that and that and that. But actually, what do you want from me? What I should do? What are you telling me? There's no way that Rinpoche can guess. And so he has to wait until the end, and then he can say something. Yeah. Okay, so that's so that was just the introduction that I wanted to do. And so once that is, this is something that you must keep in your mind, this kind of framework that you should yourself, when you're making sentences also, you should, at least until it becomes natural, try to think about the general context. Let's say, I want to go to Lisbon. If I say that in English, I'm going to say I, the subject first, and then want the action, and then the object. But since in Tibetan we're first giving the big picture and then narrowing to what the actual message or the focus of the utterance of what I'm saying, then it's obvious that what to Lisbon, which is the largest context of where the action is happening, is going to come first. And if you want to focus on the fact that it is me who wants to go to Lisbon and not someone else, then you can put nga at the beginning. Nga, Lisbon la, drogin. But you will put nga at the beginning only if you want to make that emphasis. It's not something normal for a Tibetan to say.
Could you put it at this on the second place, the nga, in this case?
Yes, but then you're making a different emphasis. Lisbon la, Nandrogin. So it is at Lisbon or in Lisbon that I'm going.
So it would have more importance in this case, Lisbon.
Yes. Yeah.
If it's Lisbon la.
Yes, yes. But still, as you see, this is not the standard way, the normal way of, or the canonical way of making the sentence. And the normal way would be Lisbon la Drogin, without the nga at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's again the same thing about laziness. If by saying Lisbon la Drogin, I am completely understood that I am the subject and that the action is happening is that this and that, then I don't need to put me. I don't need to put a subject. The only reason why in Latin languages we have subject is because the idea of whether something is a subject or not depends on the location in the sentence where it is. If something is before the subject, before the verb, then it is a subject. If it comes after the verb, then it is the object. That's how you make the cat ate the mouse or the mouse ate the cat. It's just the place where you put one or the other that decides who is the subject and who is the object. In Tibetan, the subject, as long as it is there, you don't need to put it. So the order is still kind of also set clearly like that in Tibetan. But if you want to change that, then you have something that you do not have in English or Latin languages, which is the mark of the subject, the jeta, the nge instead of na, nge Lisbon la Drogi. And so if you do that, then you're putting the emphasis that it is me who is doing that. And then, as we will see, there are some verbs which require this mark of the subject, some verbs for which it is optional, and some verb for which you don't need that. But this is better to look at from the point of view of actions themselves, from sentences. From looking at verbs and say, okay, this action, how do I describe it in a sentence? This verb, how does it make a sentence? Then we can have this clear and with as little complication as we can have in terms of grammar. Okay, so now I organized all those sentences that we have seen in a few blocks, in a few groups. And so we're going to start with very simple ones. So let's start with, I'm going to share my screen again. Yeah, and then while I'm doing that, if someone could look at the time and tell me when we should make a pause, it would be nice because I know that I'm not going to remember that. Okay. So
Dr.
here, yes.
It's like 8:25 here. We've been here for 55 minutes. You want to make a 5-minute pause?
Yeah.
Now
okay.
it's kind of in the middle.
Okay.
Before starting
Good
something
idea.
new.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Okay, so then see you in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay. So coming back to this here, there is something that I forgot to say, that I should have said more clearly, is that now let's imagine that this sentence here is going to put into verses, to be put in verses. Obviously, just like if we try to put into verses something that looks normal to us, we're going to chunk it into 2 or 4, but keeping the order of the words exactly as they are here. And so Tibetan will do the same. So they will, here will be the middle. If there are 2 verses, this will be the first one, this will be the second one. And if there are 4, then it will be chunked in this way, exactly. And so the implication that this has is that, let's say that this sentence now is 4 verses that you find in a prayer or in a poem or whatsoever. Even if it is split over 4 lines or 2 lines, it is still the same sentence that has exactly the same meaning, and that kind of has the same stylistic effects than this one here, and so that one. And so what this shows is that even if we are dealing with verses, the actual meaning span, because it goes over these 4 lines or 2 lines, when you translate it, then you must change the order of things exactly in the same way that you have it here. And because of that, you cannot really follow the order of the words that you find in the first verse, the second verse, the third verse, and the fourth verse. If you did, then you would be doing things like, for the meeting tonight, comma, this suit or that suit, the fact that this suit or that suit fits better, please do a definition about it. So, and then if you follow the order of cutting it in like that, then you see that in English, my translation has a completely different feel to it than if I just translated it, just like they have done it in the video here, which is the normal way of saying things in English in Latin languages. First, you ask what you want, and then you give details about what you do. So please do a definition about whether the suit or that suit fits better for the meeting tonight, which sounds completely normal and standard and without any stylistic effects. From the moment that I change that order, I introduce some nuances of feeling and nuances of style, and I make it sound like I'm putting the focus of what I'm saying on for the meeting tonight, rather than please do a divination. And so this is something that we need to be aware of and take care of also when we translate in Sangha Outreach or any other context when you translate. It is to make sure that even though if there are verses, we need to go from the beginning until the end of the sentence, consider this as a whole, and then try to translate it in order to keep the same stylistic effects or devices that the original has, and then only try to make it into verses. So that's why at many times when we are in Sangha Outreach, I'm sure that Gerardo or Felicia do the same. They tell you, well, actually in Tibetan, you do not have this kind of emphasis that is put on this part, even though the words appear in the first verse. Actually, the feel of the whole passage is something that is much natural, does not have all this emphasis on one part or the other. And so now looking at this and having these long sentences that we see that needs to be turned upside down totally makes this clear. And so this is something that you need to keep in mind for now. And then when you will be able to translate on your own from Tibetan, then this will already have become completely normal to you. So you won't even need to think about that. But for the time being, it's still good to keep it in mind. Okay, so now let's go to a few simple sentences. And so here is, so you have three things. You have which is okay, which is just like, yes, I agree. It's not really a word, it's just an onomatopoeia. And ja means, okay, fine, yeah. And then tangsho. Sho is the imperative. And tang means to send or to send or to, it's kind of an auxiliary verb that serves many purposes. And here it means let them in, send them inside. And so tang means what is understood here, if you remember at the beginning of the video. Let's go here. So when Rinpoche says that, no, it was before that at the very beginning. Yeah, so it is obvious because of the context, it is obvious who needs to be let in, who needs to be sent, and who is sending it. And because those two pieces of information are completely obvious from the context, then in Tibetan you don't need to put them into words. You just need to use the verb, tang sho, and then the imperative, tang sho. So, but actually the structure is that there is going to be someone so there is someone who sends, then someone else. So that is the structure of the sentence. And these two, yes, how do I keep them like that. These two should be actually faded because they're implied. So that is the, besides on and ya, which are just extra things, the whole sentence is limited to the verb. And what is implied is the subject and the object. Okay, so that is why for this sentence. Yes?
Can I?
Sure.
It's just that you said shok is an imperative.
Yes.
Tend to think of it as something like may this happen.
Yes, but here in this context, if you look at the video here, Rinpoche is not saying, may you send him to me. He's just saying, okay, let them in.
I was thinking here something like, sorry, maybe I showed too much interest in what you're saying and I interrupted you. You're gonna
No, it's fine, please, yeah. And not only you, but anyone, please interrupt me whenever I'm saying, we need to, it's good that since we are here together now, it's good that whatever doubt you have, then we can deal with them.
But what I was gonna say is, because I think, I don't know how to say this in English, but in Portuguese it would be que entrem. May they come in without the they.
Yes, but here, this again, this is a strategy of Portuguese language. Use actually a relative clause in order to mean an imperative.
Oh, so you'd still consider this an imperative in Portuguese?
I guess so, because key entry, it's like, okay, what you actually mean, the function of that sentence, what you mean when you say key entry is that, okay, you can let them in.
Well, that kind of structure also happens in Spanish, que entre, say. But then because you have the relative que, in this case, the verb is in the present subjunctive, at least in Spanish.
Yeah, and so this is something that I love hearing because it shows just how simple Tibetan is. You do not have the relative thing. You do not have the subject that is kind of twisted because of the relative pronoun. You do not have the conjugation that must agree with the relative clause, and all of this is just like so simple. Tangsho, yeah. And so actually my point here is that in spoken Tibetan, at least, there are going to be some context in written Tibetan, just like prayers, etc. When you have sho at the end, And so in that context, because of the context, it has another meaning. It takes another value, just in the same way that the relative of a key entry has the value of not the relative. It's not that the key entry, it's not, you're not putting that in relation to another part of the sentence. You're not saying those people who are coming are good. You're not using the relative clause in order to tell something about something else. You're just using that relative in another function as something else, right? And so it is the same for the shon that is used as may something happen in prayers, but the basic or primary meaning of shon is just the imperative.
Perfect.
And actually, shon on its own, it is the imperative of coming. Like you will hear a lot of Tibetans say, sho, 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 su, sho, come here, sho. And so this, it's like just auxiliaries are actually normally verbs on their own, but then become used together with verbs and lose the meaning of their own verb in order to bring some extra meaning to the other verb, right? That's how auxiliaries function. And so show here is something similar. It became the conjugation of verbs that mean the imperative, but actually what it is the imperative of coming, of to come. Sure.
Thank you.
And this ya that he used, does only mean okay here, or can also imply maybe shortened yar, mar, like up here.
Oh, yeah. So this is something that we need to hear from Rinpoche. Because if it was the direction, so up, let them in up, or let them send them down, then it would be oh, yar tangsho. So the ya would be going together with the verb. And if it is the way that I just explained it now, then we said oh ya tangsho. So let's listen and let's see what he was actually saying. Do you hear?
Yeah, yatang.
Oh, yatangsho. Yeah. So it is let them in, or so literally it's up. Up. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's very similar to one of the sentences we heard on the lessons last week in the Tibetan class of a person in a restaurant telling the guest, the customer, to come in. That's why I remember, and I thought maybe it's the same case.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so in this case, what's happening here is that there's a la that is implied. Ya la tangsho, send them in the direction of up. Ya la tangsho. So then here, tang, it's usually send someone somewhere, right? And then so someone sends something or someone somewhere. And so this somewhere is in for the verb tang is realized as a nominal group or as a chunk of words that ends with la, with this direction words.
But in spoken Tibetan, people don't use it.
So you can omit it actually. It's just the same old rule of laziness. If I can reach the same goal saying less, I'm going to do that. Ya tangsho. And it would be completely okay to say yar tangsho. Or yala tangsho is also completely okay.
All right.
Yep.
And if it was in the sense of yes, it would probably be before the she when you transcribed it, right?
So this is the transcription and the way you write. Actually, the she does not follow a strict rule. It's not like the punctuation that we have in our languages. The she only means that there is some part of the sentence that is finished, and I want to make a pause.
But does it have to do with the rhythm of the spoken language? Oh.
It's just that the author or the one writing feels that, okay, until here, if I continue writing, it's going to become confusing for the reader. So I better make a pause here, put something that tells, okay, until here, then you have something that you can keep in your mind. And then after, you can keep that on the side and use your working memory for putting new things in.
But it's up to the one who's writing. There's no...
Yes, completely. Yes, yes. And this is actually something that you will find a lot when you have the same text, exactly the same text with exactly the same words that have shades at a very different amount of different shades at very different places as well. This is very common.
And it doesn't change the meaning at all?
Not at all.
Right.
Yeah. So Tibetan punctuation actually is quite in existence. So you can't rely on She for anything. This is also something that is good to keep in your mind because there's a lot of people, especially Westerners or people who are studying Tibetan, who think that the She is also punctuation that follows a strict rule, just like Latin language punctuation. But that's not the case at all. Okay, so now let's go to next sentence. It's here text. Okay. So here what we have is something yosare. Pukudi kyunchik yosare. Rinpoche. So Rinpoche, as you see in English, also they translated well here. It is just putting as an addition at the end of the sentence in Tibetan. But since in English you do everything the opposite, you keep the most important information at the very beginning, whereas in Tibetan it's at the very end. Then Rinpoche comes at the end in Tibetan, at the beginning in English. So Rinpoche is to be left on its own. And then yosare. Yosare is a verb, like it's just like yo. So this verb is something has something else, right? And here again, it is, there's an implied la. So it means to something, there is something. Pugudila, kyunchik yore, kyunchik du, kyunchik yosare. So that is the structure of that sentence. And yes, so inside this, so here, pugu, all of you know that, of course, di also. And if I say pugudila, it means that to this child, right? And then kyunchik. So what does that child has? So to this child there is, and what is this something? Kyunchik. Kyun is a fault or something wrong. Kyunchik yosare. And so here literally what this yosare means, the sa, when you put it in the middle as of the conjugation, it brings the idea of doubt, or that something could be, but not really sure. It may be something. And so another translation of the same sentence would be, there might be something wrong with this child. But then, as in the context here, then we know that it is the mother who is talking about her daughter. Where is that? Let me find her again. Yeah. So we see the situation makes it clear that she is talking about her own child. And so even though she's saying literally, there seems to be something wrong with this child, if you translate it into a kind of normal English, then you can say, I think something is wrong with this child. It is not literal translation, but it is contextual translation. It makes things more smooth. It kind of fits better what is happening on the video here, which is why the translator chose to make that. But the structure of that is just pukudila kyunji yosareda. Yosare is, so there must be, or there might be. And then we have the da here that comes, that we talked about right before, da. And actually, it's the da shows that she's putting emphasis and she's saying, oh, really, there is this. And so in order to translate that into English, the fact that she is really putting an emphasis on that, if you say, I think something is wrong with this child, then you also have the same function of insisting on something. And so this is another reason why the translation is, I think something is wrong with this child.
Something?
Sorry?
Can I ask something?
Yeah, sure.
This is a silly question and I should know at this level, but why is she using re if it's something that is from her perspective and she's not using do?
Yeah, so actually what is happening is that she's using yore. She's not using yo nor do, she's using yore. Yore has the value, like you saw in the video that I sent. Yore has the value, means that it is something general, something that is always like that everyone agrees that is like that. Yore is just saying something general about what is happening. And so this mother is telling Rinpoche, there is something wrong with this child. There is doesn't mean I think there is, or does not mean I see something, but it is a general statement. There is. And so yore is this general statement, which is why you have yo and re. And then the sign in the middle just adds the doubt. So then it becomes there might be something wrong with this child. So it's not that re here works as the conjugation and yo is the verb, but it is yore together. And yosare, the sign in the middle, adds the doubt part of it. Yeah, so then now, so we all saw that, and maybe we could try to create sentences of our own using yore or do or something like that. So I'm going to start, and then I'm going to ask anyone who wants to say something, to create a sentence with this structure. To something, there is something else. And so using exactly that same structure, so let me put it here for you to see. Actually, the reason why I'm stopped sharing is that I don't see your faces when I do that, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so using that structure, what I could say is Lisbon la namshi yagodo, or Naran la lapa ye. Can someone make a sentence? Or okay. Okay, so let's just continue, but then try to think about sentences that you could do with the words that you have learned.
Could it be Dubchen? Tilorla tanda kibodu.
But then you added tanda, which is something that does not fit into this structure here.
Chilorla kibodu.
Chilorla kibodu. Right. Chilorla kibodu. Yeah. So Chilorla somewhere kibo something do, there is. Chilola kibudu. But of course, as you all know, chilola kibudu is not going to be translated as there is happy outside. Right? But it is used that structure, so it's fine. Anyone else?
I wanna try.
Yes, please.
Setubo ki sokala chu pedramo yosare.
Yes. Good. Yeah. So here it's nice because we have not something just simple, but we still have the same structure, the 3 blocks. Setubal gitsoka la. Setubal gitsoka is 1 unit. So it is the place where something happened. Setubal gitsoka. Tsoka is the beach. And then Setubal is the place. So Setubal gitsoka. The beach of Setubal. Setubal gitsoka la. At that place. Chu pe drangmo. Chu pe drangmo. So water. Pe drangmo. Very cold. Yosare. There probably is, or there might be. Setubal gitsoka la. Then we finish this part. I keep this in my mind. I don't know what's happening after. It doesn't matter. I keep it in my mind. Chu pe dramo, okay. Second bit of information that came in my mind, and I keep it like that. I don't know how to make sense of these 2 bits. It doesn't matter. I keep them. Yosare. Okay, so now I can put them together and say, okay, so it is at that place that there is this. Yeah. Anyone else?
All right. So I thought one sentence.
Yeah.
Niekapar zasala du.
Niekapar zasala du. Do, right? That's what you want to say, right? Do.
Yeah. Do or yode. I'm not sure which one to use.
Okay, so actually you can use any of them, but it depends what you want to say. If you say do, what you're saying is that I went there and I saw it. If you say yore is, oh, generally speaking, I know it is there. And ye, it means I have that telephone there. Or something like that, yeah. So it depends what you want to say. Actually, it's more like in English, you don't have to think about how the action happens before you can say the sentence, right? You don't have to think whether it is like this or like that or like that. But recently I learned that for Russian, you must think not only how it happens, but even many more details about how the action and the modalities of the action, etc., before you can start saying a sentence. So in Tibetan, you do not have such a big complication, but when you use the conjugation and the auxiliaries, you must have an idea of how you want to present the action. Yeah, and so nge khabar zasala do. So if you use do, then it is there, and I saw it. So it is there. I'm not, when I'm going to translate, I'm not going to say, and I saw it, because this is an addition which is not needed. In English, you do not need to say, and I saw it, to mean my telephone is there. So, nge khabar, ngarang gi khabar, so I don't need to translate that. Zasala, za sa. Za is to eat, and sa is the place. Zasa la, at that place. Zasa la, do. So, nge khabar, first block. Zasala, second block, and do third block. And then you see here that you inverted the order. You put nge khaba at the beginning and zasala do, which means that you want to focus on the fact that it is my telephone that is there. So you would use that structure if you were talking to someone, then you say, oh, where is your telephone? And then since you're talking about your telephone, then you're going to say nge khabar di zasala do.
Rupchen,
yes.
Do you think this is related with the way of thinking of Tibetans? Because I think it's at least in Spanish, it's not really clear that we consider if things are like this or things are like this according with our perspective. Am I clear?
Yes, you're clear. Yes, actually, what happens in Spanish and in other Latin languages is that there's a general way of saying things.
You don't consider that things are like this because of your perspective.
Yes, you
You're
don't,
like
you don't need to do that.
objectivist.
Yes. Yeah, but this is because there's a standard way of saying things. And then people are expected to use that standard way. Whether it is exactly what you mean or not doesn't matter. But actually what happens between Tibetan and Spanish and other languages is that if you want to say, my telephone is there and I saw it in Spanish, then you will have to add those words. If that was really your intention, you are forced to add those words. So the strategy of Spanish language is not to cram down the meaning of I saw it inside the conjugation, but the strategy is to use the standard way of saying and add something at the end to say, okay, and I actually saw it. So it's just that the two languages have different ways of doing something else, but Tibetans can mean exactly what you mean, and you can mean exactly what Tibetans mean as well, just using different strategies.
Okay. Can I make one try?
Yes.
Sorry.
Please, sure.
No. Go on.
No, it was nothing.
Kundrolin La. Kuten Yusare.
Kuten Yusare. Kundrolin La. Kuten Yusare. Okay. So Kuten is Kundrolin La. Kundrolin is the place, obviously. Kundrolin La. Kuten. So usually it's an expression to mean the representation that are statues. Representation of the Buddha. Ku is the body and ten is the support. So Kuten together becomes an expression that means representation, bodily representations. Kuten. Yosare.
So then Tiago knows that there are statues there, okay?
Yeah.
And then how he will answer me like Yaya Kundrolin La Kuten Re.
No. If you say what is meaning of Re? Re is it is something.
Yeah.
So Kundrolin La Kuten Re means at Kundrolin. I don't know for what reason you put that, but that's the meaning of something is something else. So you have this again, these three pieces. Something is something else. And then in your case, if you say Kuten Re, then this first thing, which is the Kuten, is implied. Right? And then you will say that something that is implied is a Kuten. Kuten Re. And then you could say Kundrolin La, Chik Kuten Re. So what you're saying is that something that is in Kundrolin is a Kuten.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes. So that's why when you use Re, it is always that something is something.
Right.
Re. But then, in order to answer your question, if Tiago now is there and then you tell to him Kundrolin La Kuten Yosare, he will tell him. He might say Mare Kuten Yore. Kuten Yore. Or he will say, oh, Kuten Duda. Kuten Duda. I went there and I saw it actually. Kuten Duda.
But he can answer with Yore.
Yes.
Okay.
He can answer with Yore because he wants to say that I can say Narala Kabar Yore. Narala Kabar Yore. And by saying that, I'm saying that it is general knowledge that I have this telephone. And he could mean just in the same way, it is general knowledge, or it is commonly perceived by everyone and accepted by everyone that Kundrolin La Kuten Yore.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And so I can say Zambuling La, so in the world, Zambuling La Chu Yore. And then when I go there and I see it, oh, Zambuling la chu duda.
What if it's when you say generally known, but might it be something which isn't actually generally known? Let me explain. I'm not really sure you have a phone. It's not really common knowledge.
Yeah.
Drupchen has a phone.
Yeah.
Or maybe because everyone has a phone, but you might have a statue in your house.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you have a statue or not, but could you say in this sense? Oh yes, it is. In this sense, more.
Yes, you can use that exactly in the same way that in English you could say, I'm not sure about whether you have a phone or not, but yeah, everyone has a phone. You also have a phone. I'm affirming something without knowing it, right? So it is also possible.
Surely you have a phone.
So I'm not saying surely you have a phone. I'm affirming it. If I say surely, it means that I still have some doubt.
Yes.
Even though from the context you can understand that, in what comes out my mouth, I'm affirming something. I'm sure about that. And then, so just in the same way, when I say Ngala Khabar Yore, I am presenting you something that is generally valid, that is going to be true, and generally speaking. It might be new information to you, but the way I present it to you is as something that is generally known.
Maybe even if it's not, that's what I mean. Like you could.
It might not be for you, but I'm going to present it that way. Just like another example that I got from working on sentences like that on material was so Tosam, this Tibetan guy who works with me, told me, well, a mother will never say Ngala Pukusum Yo. Ngala Pukusum Yo, I have 3 children. A mother will never say that because it's so obvious for her that there's no need to say, I'm sure I saw I have 3 children. It doesn't have any meaning to say Ngala Pukusum Yo. So what she's going to say is that she's going to talk from the point of view of someone else who doesn't know that and say, oh, Ngala Pukusum Yore. You should know, like everyone else, that I have 3 children. Ngala Pukusum Yore. It is normal, everyone knows, or it is always the case, it is general knowledge that I have 3 children. She's going to present it that way because saying, oh, I saw I have 3 children doesn't make sense.
Because it's strong. It's not a thing that I just saw yesterday. It's an obvious thing in a way.
Yes, it is presented as something that is. I'm presenting it. If a mother says that to someone, comes and she doesn't know, she's going to say, oh, actually, this is the case since long time before, still continuing, it's going to continue. It is something general. Ngala Pukusum Yore.
Right.
Yeah. So again, here, it's not that one is right or one is wrong, but in this context, when a mother says that, then you doesn't fit with the context, so it's not going to be used. But grammatically speaking, both are fine. Yeah. So that's why, according to the different contexts, you might use ye or yore or do, even though at the beginning, if you have a clear-cut idea of what to say when it's me, what to say when it's other, etc., then because of the context, sometimes it will not fit exactly in those boxes. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to the next sentence. So I don't know how much time we have left. Yeah, so let's take that. Another sentence, which kind of funny as well. This one here. So this is this guy that thinks that there's a ghost in the toilet. And so here again, Rinpoche, so he's calling out, he's addressing to Rinpoche. And here we also have the same thing, Yosare. And because of that, the structure will be the same, the structure of the sentence. We also have these three components. And it is Ti Sangjo Nang La, first one. Du Jik, so he's repeating himself. Du Jik, here. Yosare Da, the verb. And so here, again, like same thing as before, the I think part is actually the translation of the ta at the end. The emphasis of, oh, I really think that there is something, or then according to what I see, there surely must be something. There surely must be a ghost. And so that is translated, I think. Yosare. And so in some place, there is something. In some place, something there is. This Sangjo Nang La, Sangjo is for toilet. And so in this toilet, even though they translate that the toilet, in this toilet, in that particular one, which I went to, this Sangjo Nang La, Du Jik, so yeah, a ghost or one ghost, Yosare. So it is exactly the same structure, just with a little bit more complication, a little bit more complex here in the different parts. But Kyunchik and Dujik is the same as well. Okay, so that is fine. Let's go to something else.
Well, while we are here, just let me just say something.
Yeah.
Yusarida, could you say Yusare is, I think there is, and the ta is for emphasis. So even if it's no need to write it this way, it could be, I do think there is.
So it does. Yes, yeah, it could be. Yeah.
And the sa for think.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, sa, Yusare is there might be. So I think altogether, think is something that is implied here. So Yosare is already translated as there is, right? So I think must be something else. It's all in the da here.
Oh, the sa isn't there, I think.
Yosare is the same thing as we had here.
Yeah.
Yosare is just yore. So there generally is, but I'm not quite sure. So I put sa, Yosare.
Drupchen, can I ask you something?
Sure.
If I didn't have the da in the end, I would just straight translate it as there might be a ghost.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
But even with the ta, would be wrong to not put I think.
Sorry, I didn't hear the beginning.
Even without the ta.
Yeah.
Even with the ta, would be wrong to not put I think.
Yes,
like to say, maybe there is a ghost in the toilet. No.
Yeah, no, that's also a good
it's a choice.
Yeah. It is a choice. Yeah, it is completely a choice. But I think that it works in this context here because this guy is really afraid, and he's insisting on the fact that, yeah, he's afraid that there is there. So he said, I want Rumuche to react, so I need to put as much emphasis as possible. So I think there is a ghost. Yeah, but if you just look at the sentence, it would be complete. Maybe there is a ghost in the toilet. It's completely fine as well. Yeah. Yes, sir, it does. And then also here, when you translate from one language to the other, some things you might translate as words, and some other things you might translate as intonation. So, for example, the ta, the emphasis of the ta, I could say, oh, there is a ghost in the toilet. So the emphasis is translated by the intonation. So I don't need to put I think. There is a ghost instead of there is a ghost.
Drupchen, could you please explain again the reason why there is a ta after the de?
Ta is just like I want to insist on something. You said ta. there might be a ghost there, and I really want you to consider that. I want to insist on the fact that this information is important.
Okay.
And just like if I tell someone, sure, come here, but I can say, Shota, I'm really insisting, I really want you to come here, Shota. That's usually
it's
when
kind
you
of
use,
an exclamation.
yes, yeah, it's the emphasis, yeah. And yeah, for example, the Shota is when you ask a few times, sure, normally the person is still not coming, and then you really want to insist on that, and Shota. Or again, with mothers, when their children are not eating well enough, Sada. And so, yeah, because of how the lessons are made in the Tibetan lessons that you're having, you must not hear quite a lot this da. Because the teachers do not want to sound like rude or something like that, so they don't use that to emphasize on things.
And this da is not depending on the suffix?
No, it doesn't. No.
Oh. I was thinking, so now I was thinking it was like this when you repeat the suffix to emphasize. There's possibility as well, isn't there? In other contexts, you might repeat the last. Isn't it? Maybe I'm making it up.
No. This is, I'm just trying to think about.
Maybe this is when you repeat and you put the naro. Reto. I think that's what Ebihar is thinking.
No,
yes,
the naro is a different accent. It's from the. It's going to be people from Kham who say that. And they, in their head, there's no naraton. There's only the da that is in their head. But when they pronounce it, there's the to, the sound that come up because that's their accent. But let's say if I said droda, go, let's go. Dro does not have any suffix. I need to write it here. Droda. There's no suffix here, and still the da is the same. Droda. And so here again, this is a good example because this is the minimal Tibetan sentence that is correctly built. The subject is implied, the object is implied, where we're going is also implied, but still a correct sentence. You don't need anything else than the verb in order to make a fully grammatically correct sentence. And so, yeah, this is I'm kind of putting emphasis on that because we all come from languages that are Latin and that require a subject, even though it's not there. Even though there's no subject, then we must put a subject.
But I think in Portuguese you would say vamos.
Vamos, yes. Exactly.
Vamos, vamos.
Yeah, in Spanish too.
Bora.
Vamos? Yeah. Oh, vamos. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so it is English and French maybe who have this obligatory subject, grammatical subject as they call it.
But couldn't you say in English just let's go?
Let's go. Yes, right.
But there's still a subject there because
French,
of us.
maybe,
Let us go.
Let us go,
in
right.
French, maybe
Yeah.
allez, and you all know
Yes.
where you're going. You're not. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. Come on.
Yes. Actually, this obligatory subject is in the context of imperative, optional, even in French and English sometimes. So it's when it is not an imperative, then you must have at all times subject and object, at least subject. So imperative is not a good example for what I was trying to say. Okay.
Dulcim, regarding with what Daniel asked, could we find maybe a prayer or something that was written in Kham that has this do with the naro?
Now, if it is written in Kham, like I was saying, it's just like you speak in Spanish from South America, and you will have someone speaking from Spain with a very different accent. And the sound coming from your mouth when you say the same words will be completely different. So even though the sound is different when they come out from your mouth, what the letters you have in your head are the same.
I have an example for him in Spanish, because in Spanish we speak differently in Argentina. We don't say caliarse, we say callarse. So we pronounce it as if it were Y, but it's actually a double L. So, but we write it correctly, but we say it in a different way, right, Facu?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what happened with the da here in Kham and Amdo and Lhasa, etc. Okay. So now let's go to something else, something that is going to be somehow simpler, but actually not so much. So it is here, this, the mother who is, so she's, maybe it's here, oh no, it's not here, it's the mother who is saying, oh no, too far. Ah, yes, it was at the beginning actually. Ah no, it was not there. So where is she saying look? No. So seeing the context is important because there's and the sentence has a lot of ellipses of missing parts. So that's what I'm trying to find it. So let me try to read here in the subtitle. Okay, so if ah, yes, here. Okay, so minute 2:35. Ah, yes. Okay, so let's go back a little. So she's saying, "Oh, look! This is how he is. Ah, look at him." Okay, that sentence. So we have the same ta that was at the end, but now it's at the beginning. It's like the emphasis that you want to do. Like, oh no! Look at him! Ta da. And so you have the je here, which is again like before. Something is something. So yes. Doing these three things. Okay. So what is implied is the what we are talking about, what she's talking about, her child. It is the context. It's not going to be the subject, but just the context. And it is not said, so it is implied. So I'm going to trying to make it transparent. And then, yes, okay, it's an adverb actually. So an adverb has a different. Yes. So what she's saying is that tatang, again, tatang here is also you look at something or you look at someone, and she's saying this to Rinpoche. So she's saying Rinpoche looks at my son, tatang. And the tang here is the imperative. It is written in the same way that you say this thing and that other thing. But when you encounter a tang after a verb, then you know it marks the imperative. It is not and. So ta means right now. Ta, tatang, look, tatang, tatang. Tenre, re. Tenre, so my son, mi pugu, tenre, re. Tenre is like that. Tenre is also something that all of you have seen until now, right? Tenre, re. Like that, he is. He is like that. And then they translated that this is how he is. Tadam. And then again, there's look again. Tadam, look. And then D. D is actually, Tasam was telling me that it's a very bad way of referring to people, because D means this. And D is only, according to the correct Tibetan way of speaking, should not be used for people. It should be only used for animals or things. But at the same time, we clearly see that the usage does not limit itself to that. It's also used for people, D. And
we also have it in Spanish. We say este, and we shouldn't use it for people. It's kind of rude.
Okay. Yeah, so it has the same value here. It's also D. It's like the mother saying, look at this thing. Because she's upset about her son. So it's nice to see something that is similar between Spanish and Tibetan.
And this expression, oh gosh, that it's added, right? Just
Yeah, so this is what I would call a non-literal translation, or they try to render the feeling of the mother. And they saw that, well, there's D at the end here, that if I translate literally it means this, but then I cannot really put that in a translation. This is how he is. This in English doesn't make sense. So they try to say, okay, how does the Tibetan understand it? What do they feel when they read this or they hear this? And then it's like an expression of despair. D, este. Also like that. And so that's why they put oh gosh. Yeah, so actually this is very nice also to see, because we see a lot of things about translation, and we see that translation is actually more about choices than being literal. The choices that you do to render what you read and what you feel in the source language. But yeah, I agree there. Ogres is not in the Tibetan. And then there's this tatam, this third tatam that is missing also in the translation. Okay, so then here we see that we can, with very little words, we can say a lot of things. And just like other languages, also Tibetan makes ellipses. You just take one word in order to mean a full sentence. That is also fine to do. And something that you would do, for example, if someone asked me, I could simply say momo, or cha, tea. And yeah, as long as you give the information that the person wants, you can leave implied as many things that you want. So this is something that you're going to see in the, if you look at Tibetan speaking, but this is not usually something that you will hear or see in classes, because in classes, the objective of teachers is to tell you how to do things properly. But at the same time, if you are short of, you don't really know what to say, etc., and you know that the information that they need is this, then Fidat is completely just giving that information. And they will understand, and the conversation or the communication can continue. Okay, so now let me choose something else. Yeah, this one is nice as well. How much time do we still have?
Finishing. No.
Sorry? Finished?
We should be finished. Yes.
We're finished. Okay. Okay, so then let's stop here. Yeah. So then we can continue another time. There's many things that we can still go on with. This just this small video.
Okay.
Thank you, Drupchen.
It was
Could you please share the video with the translation, Tibetan translation you made?
Sure. Yes, I will send the whole thing. Yeah. Actually, I will share the document I was writing in, just as it is, so then you can have it as well. And there are both links that are in it already.
And that example you gave of the Tibetan, and then below all the arrows, that's very useful.
Yes, it is there also. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so then let's have a break and after meet again for Kembo David's talk.
Thank you very much, Drupchen.
Thank you.
It was great.
So much.
Yeah, very useful. Thank you so much.